This is our brewery. We brew here on average about 10,000 kegs a year. This is a 15-barrel brew house, so we can make 30 kegs at a time in here. So you see our silo outside is an active silo. So we go through that about once every 6 weeks, 21 tons of grain. The grain comes in from the silo into this, which is grist mill. And this actually grinds up all the grain, gets all the skin exposed. So it goes from here through this an auger system, and then it's dropped right into the first vessel, which is called our mash tun. This is where the brewing process actively starts. We drop in all of the grain, various different amounts for different types of beers, and then we start adding in our hot water. You're creating a liquid that's called wort. Then we'll transfer it into the next vessel, which is called our kettle. At the end of this process, we're just left with a big pile of wet, mushy grain. So the spent grain is gone either to the farm or into the dog treats, and it goes into the kettle. That's then where we start adding in our hops. So hops are ultimately what give beer its different flavor profiles as well as the grain. We'll decide what hops we need, what hops suit the profiles of our beers, and then we'll actually have farmers in Yakima Valley, Washington, plant those hops. We'll get to go up, we'll get to harvest them with them, we'll get to pick which field we want them from, we'll do sensory analysis on them. We'll then decide, right, that they're the hops we're going to use. So an hour and a half in the boil, you've added in the hops. You now have kind of sugary with a bit of bitterness, hot liquor. It's about 200 degrees at this moment in time. And then it's transferred into the whirlpool. And what the whirlpool does is it actually creates like that whirlpool vortex, and it actually gets out a lot of the remaining solids. And you're down to a pretty clear liquid. So it's 4.5 hours from start to finish. And then it's transferred through our heat restrictor and then goes into one of our fermenting vessels. Basically, a barrel is 2 kegs, so we can make 60 kegs at a time in these, we can make 90 kegs at a time in these. So now we've put the sugary, hoppy water in here, then we pitch in our yeast. So the yeast is then what starts eating the sugars, which is where the alcohol starts getting created. Then when the ABV is where we want, then we can stop fermenting. So at that point we take out the yeast, and as soon as the yeast is pitched out, then we dial this down to about 34 degrees, and fermentation is finished at that point. Once it's conditioned to where we want it, it's at the clarity we want, then we'll transfer it into one of these vessels. These are called bright tanks. This is where we actually dial in the bubbles, so you get that nice head retention and you get that nice bubbly, effervescent beer. Fresh beer is the best beer, so we try and send our beer out as fresh as possible. Everything we're doing is about growing our distribution and getting our fresh beer in more people's hands.
I love that.